The other area we focus on from a mental health standpoint is reducing loneliness and isolation.
Mm.
Sadly, more than 40% of seniors in the US report themselves as chronically lonely and isolated. And being chronically lonely for a senior is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has all the same horrible health impacts as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of TEQ. I'm your host, Carolina Milanesi. And as you may know, if you follow me closely, I have been dealing with my mom and her dementia for quite some time, which is something that we talked about before on this podcast as far as how we can help people around us that are, getting older. And the downside of getting older, I'm starting to get there myself, as far as memory and just cognitive ability declining. And sadly, when it comes to technology, the larger organizations cater to the broad population, which is not your elderly tech users. And oftentimes this creates a gap that we are trying to solve in different ways. The technology that for a lot of people becomes all of a sudden from a help to a hurdle. And as the cognitive decline increases, uh, just a barrier that they cannot deal with. And today's guest is someone that had a need, a family need, and saw an opportunity to address this gap for so many thousands of users across markets. Scott Lien is the CEO and co founder of GrandPad and has taken that need and opportunity into a product that is really changing people's life for the people themselves who are using it and for the families and caretakers that look after them. So help me welcome Scott to the conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. I'm excited because, um, you know, as I get closer to that age, and as I see my mom, who 82 and been dealing with dementia for now 2 to 3 years, um, the things that she loved the most, including using her iPad to do solitaire, have become impossible because the technology is too complicated, even for a brand like Apple that is perceived in the market as one of the, simplicity focused brands. And I'm curious to start with your story and your initial need that you discovered and how you got to GrandPad as a product that you brought to market.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. It was my mom. My mom was the inspiration. I had been working in the technology industry for years, and always my career had been devoted to how can we use technology to improve people's lives, and I'd done that in many different contexts. But it was about 12 years ago when me and my wife and son were living in California. My mom and dad lived back in the Midwest in Iowa. My mom was 80 at the time, and if you think back 12 years ago, that's about the time that these smartphones really got pervasive. Everyone of all ages really started using them for photo sharing and everything. My mom held up her smartphone and she said, "This thing isn't very smart, and it actually makes me as an 80-year-old, it makes me feel stupid, and I'm not stupid." And she said, I'm really frustrated, and it's actually a barrier. Like, I can't communicate with my family. And she said, "Scott, you and my son Isaac, you're the tech guys. Can't you create something for us elderly people? Something that we would love to use and it would keep us connected with our family, friends, and caregivers." And my mom was a brilliant lady, and I always listened to my mom. And so that was the inspiration, and off we went. We quickly realized that it wasn't just my mom. There's millions of people. We believe there's more than 32 million people just in the USA today over the age of 75 who struggle with technology. They're frustrated, and it's not their fault. It's because no one before us had taken the time to design something just for them and really listen to and understand and embrace their unique needs. And once we did that, off we went, and we've now reached more than 1.8 million people of the seniors who use our tablet, their family, friends, and caregivers that use our free companion app on their phones. And it's absolutely transformed their lives. So we love working with elderly people. It's really fun.
I love what you said about how your mom felt because for my mom, her dementia is so advanced that it's harder to communicate that. But at the beginning, when we started with smartphone, that feeling of feeling stupid and knowing that you function all your life, right? You have grown kids and you've been through life. That feeling is so demoralizing, right? Like it really impacts your general mental well-being when you feel that you are unable to do something that the people around you are doing so well. And I'm sure that even in your communities that there are services that oftentimes either the senior center or the church, puts them in place with younger people trying to help you,
Yeah.
but it's harder when it's people that come at it from a different perspective. And that's the problem that oftentimes technology has, right? It's designed by people that are younger and have a different, cognitive behavior than older users.
Right? You're exactly right. I mean, before starting GrandPad, I worked in Silicon Valley for a brilliant company that was really good at designing things, but never once did they ever think about the needs of people who are 80 or 90 or 100. And so average age of our GrandPad tablet user, the average is 85. Our
Oh,
old
wow.
our oldest so far, a beautiful lady from Charlotte, North Carolina, named Hester Ford, was 116, 116.
What?
And there's another lady here in Minnesota I got to know. Anna was 114. And the thing that I always remind people of, you know, these smartphones, they're designed, again, I worked with them in Silicon Valley. They're mostly designed by 30-year-olds
Yeah,
and then by a 30-year-old for a 30-year-old. They're taking into account their life experiences as a
correct.
30, right? And that's the designers and software engineers are generally in that age 20 to 30. So it's not that seniors don't know how to use technology, whether it's the hardware or software. It's that it wasn't designed for them.
For
And
them.
I would say, you know, a real uh, clear example is automobiles. Clearly, automobiles are designed for adults. You would never put a 5-year-old child behind the wheel of a car and say, "Go drive to the grocery store." Right? That'd be stupid and dangerous for everybody because the car was designed for adults. And that's the problem. Smartphones and standard technology, iPads and all the rest of them were designed for people around age 30. And there's about a 20-year halo. Kids down to about age 10 can use it okay, and people up to about age 50. But I'm 60, and me and all my friends, we all have bifocals, and the fonts and buttons are too small. I mean, my wife has the fonts maxed out on her iPhone, and it just doesn't work well for her. So we looked at that and said, our average age of our user is going to be 85. And so let's design it for their wonderful, unique, beautiful needs, physical and
Needs. Yeah.
and and then the next thing, and this is quite interesting, we realized, I'm the oldest on the team, but I didn't have anybody on my team who'd ever been 80 before. So how would you know? And so what we did is first observation, of course, studying what we lovingly call super seniors, those over the age of 75. But then we realized what we really need is we need them on our team. So we hired a group of, we call them our grand advisors. They're all over the age of 80. We always keep a group of 10 of them. My oldest grand advisor right now, Ed, is 103. Most of them are in their 90s. I have one gentleman who's 54. He's actually paraplegic, and so he's got a lot of physical challenges. So they are the designers of the product, and we just listen and observe, and then we're the hands that goes and builds what they want.
That's amazing. I'm curious, some of the the challenges that you had when you started first thinking about the hardware.
Yeah. So it's so simple, but at first, the first thing we saw, because we used kind of a standard off the shelf tablet in our
Yeah.
first one. And the first problem was the little buttons, the little on off buttons. So we'd set it down, ship it to someone. They couldn't turn it on, and you look at like a standard tablet, this is an iPhone, it's got all these little buttons on the side. None of them are marked. They're small. You don't know what they're for. The biggest button looks like the camera. Well, the camera, you can't push on that to turn it on. And on off buttons, you got to press and hold. It takes very fine grained motor skills.
Yeah.
If I'm 90 and have dexterity issues, eyesight issues, tremors, I can't even turn it on. So we invented a capability called auto on. When you get the GrandPad, it's shipped to you. Of course, it has to be turned off. You simply set it in our wireless docking station. You set it on, it senses power, and it automatically turns on. You
There you
just
go.
right? So that was step one. Make make it easy to turn on, and we also have a theory of remove complication. The best on-off switch is no on-off switch, and so once it's turned on, the on-off switch is just opening the
Like
case,
that. Yeah.
and it's on. So, but then the second one is quite interesting, the box. Think about, we've all gone to the store and bought some electronics, and Apple, as an example, has beautiful boxes. They're so elegant, but for a 90-year-old with dexterity issues, they're absolutely impossible to open. We've all seen like those plastic clamshell things that they use. They do it so people don't steal things. They're impossible for anyone, but especially seniors to open. And it's actually a health safety issue. Many
Mm.
seniors are on blood thinners for their heart, for AFib, like warfarin and so on. And if they cut themselves, trying to open something, it can be a catastrophic health issue. So we designed an easy to open senior friendly box. So we really rethought everything. We have more than 30 what we call poof points, points of frustration, where they
I
frustrate,
love that.
and we've designed away all the frustration. That's why we have 5-star ratings, and people are shocked when they all of a sudden they get a video call from their 95-year-old mom. It's like, wow, mom, how did you do that?
Um, you mentioned some of the things that, from a design perspective, you thought about, and I didn't even think about the box. Um, what were some of the things that you looked at and you decided that you were not going to compromise on? Because with technology, you always have choices to make. There's one, and I think that sometimes technology, just because you can do it, you're going to end up doing it, but you shouldn't really. But then on the other side, there's compromises that you have to make. What you were thinking when you say, well, okay, if this is our target audience, these are the top three things that I'm not going to compromise on.
Yeah. First is ease and simplicity. It's got to be simple. But next was safety and security. Again, we started the company for my mom and mother in law. It had to be safe. And sadly, well intended kids give their 90-year-old mom an iPad and get her going on Facebook. And they do that because they want her to be more connected to what's going on. Sadly, it's absolutely the worst possible thing you could do, because now you've just created a wide open gateway for bad guys to scam mom. So we built from the ground up, because it was personal. How do we create safety and security? And before starting GrandPad, I worked in the banking industry. I was CIO at Bank of America, and I had a very wise head of security who he used to work for like the NSA way back when. And he said, when we talked about security philosophy, he said, Scott, if you want to keep a secret, don't tell anyone. Right? And so what does that mean? It means, and think about this. If someone picks up your iPhone, smartphone, and it happens to be unlocked, right? Um, they have the keys to the kingdom. They can see all
Absolutely.
your emails, all your contacts, all your phone, all your texts. They can get into Amazon and start buying stuff and send it to themselves. There's a lot that they can do because all those secrets are here and quite accessible. So our whole design approach was don't have the secrets. Things are locked down. It's called the circle of trust, which it's by private invitation only, secured invite. So by default, the only people that can call you or email you or share photos or video call are the people you invite in, and the bad guys can't get in. We don't expose other PII, personal information data on the GrandPad. So it's still simple, right? But it's secure. It's far more secure than other devices. I mean, I don't know about you, but my phone rings off the hook from bad guys all day long, and I got every blocker on there. I get text messages. It just isn't a very secure device.
And obviously the I think the thing that we need to remember is that I might have dual factor authentication on my iPhone or whatever device I'm using. But, as I think my mom is pretty typical, they want a simple password, if they want a password at all, so that, they don't forget it. And
Right.
so that's the other part, right? That with general technology, the level of sophistication on the security side is not designed necessarily for people that have memory issues.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so we built that from the ground up of thinking of who is this user and how do you keep them safe? And you actually increase the level of communication within that circle of care. And here's a really compelling reason why we did it this way. I see tons of seniors that have a standard smartphone. The phone will ring, they'll see the number and it doesn't have a caller ID, it's an unknown number. They appropriately so have been trained and learned like don't answer it unless you're sure you know who it is. So here is legitimate their grandson who just got a new iPhone and is happy to call grandpa and tell him about that and how he just won the football game, but grandpa misses that call because he didn't know that number. And what's so sad about that is that caller ID is such a false sense of security. We know that
Mm.
it's actually very easy for the bad guys to spoof that and make it look like it's someone, right? So it actually decreases communication. What we do by all of those are known, invited, secured. When GrandPad rings, you're assured it absolutely is someone that's been invited into that circle of care. So all of a sudden we see the level of communication increase, which means the families are more
Interesting.
engaged, which means, if mom says, "Hey, I had this weird thing happen," the family's more likely to know about it and you can prevent the scams.
But the GrandPad is more than communication, right? It's about health and wellness as well.
That's right. Yeah, it's about communication, it's about connection, content, and then health and wellness. And the health and wellness falls into several categories. So first, being cognitively engaged, and we have lots of great games. You mentioned solitaire earlier. We
Yep.
have solitaire, crossword, Sudoku, all the classic games. Sadly, even games, you go download a game out of the App Store, there's so many scams within games now. The bad guys are using games as a way to troll people, right?
I mean,
So,
to be honest with you, just sometime is the fact that there are hidden charges to, you're buying a solitaire and then you don't know, and every time you click something, because most time you either don't read or maybe just my mom, she, is yes to everything, and the last thing you know, you just cranked up $45 on
right,
tokens or whatever it is that they're trying to get you to pay.
you're so right. The number one solitaire game in the US, that's exactly how it works. It's very predatory. And they are very clever of how they trick you. They'll say, "Oh, Scott, new solitaire user, congratulations. You just won $3.50. Just put in your banking information so we can give you that money." So you do that. And then they might give you money a couple times, little amounts, and then they go in and set the hook and go, "Oh, Scott, wouldn't you love to sign up and play this tournament? You could win $1,000. It's only $10." And then they get you and they get you and they just keep feeding that kind of gambling mentality. We don't do any of that. We think games are a great way to bring families together. So intergenerational game playing. So you can play games like Yahtzee and chess and checkers with the kids and grandkids. So we have games on GrandPad to engage people's mind, but to create connection. And the other area we focus on from a mental health standpoint is reducing loneliness and isolation.
Hmm.
Sadly, more than 40% of seniors in the US report themselves as chronically lonely and isolated. And being chronically lonely for a senior is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has all the same horrible health impacts as 15 cigarettes a day. It,
Wow.
so it's really a terrible mental health issue, and it's one of those that we can actually cure. We can, by connecting seniors with their family and really engaging them. And that might just be a simple video call. It might be sharing photos. It might be playing games together. And then lastly, we're used in very traditional clinical healthcare settings. Um, about doctors doing telehealth with seniors.
Mm.
Sadly, so many of the telehealth situations, especially during COVID, but still, it's telehealth is very commonly used, whether it's for physical health or mental health therapy. Um, with GrandPad, they can just easily connect with their doctor or clinician in a very easy and enjoyable way. So we're used broadly in a number of areas.
Yeah, and I love that because especially for somebody that like my mom suffers from dementia, um, getting just a simple thing of taking her to the doctor is quite tasking and it breaks the routine. So being able to connect with a device where she doesn't have to go anywhere is absolutely critical. Um, Talking about the loneliness factor, obviously we all live very busy lives, and as much as you making it easier for family to get connected, you also did something else in 2024. You introduced Grandy Chat, right, as an AI power companion to, I'm assuming, help more with that companionship.
That's right. Yeah. So Grandy Chat is an AI powered voice first virtual companion. And it's an owl persona. So the kind of the wise old owl. We're not trying to trick anyone that this is a human being. It's an owl persona. You just speak to it and it speaks back to you. It speaks 57 languages. We've learned too, like accents are very important. So if someone lives in Ireland and it's a senior, it's easiest for them to hear an Irish accent, will have an Irish accent. It can be adjusted, male voice, female voice, all that. So it's easy to hear. And Grandy is trained to interact with that senior. And we actually created a safety layer so that it doesn't do diagnostics and worry people. If you say, like, hey, I'm not feeling well, it will just advise you, hey, you should call a loved one, or if needed, call 911. So it's built-in safety. But it what's incredible is it listens. Sadly, most humans aren't that great of listeners, especially maybe the 50-year-old son that is not 85-year-old dad is saying,
No comment.
my back hurts. And every day he talks to dad and he says, my back hurts. And all that grandpa, in that case, he just wants his son to listen and show empathy and care, right? And Grandy can do that. It's also used, seniors wake up in the middle of the night and they want someone to talk to, or they have a question they can ask Grandy. So yeah, Grandy's been a huge hit for us. We're continuing to invest in it. We never want to replace human interaction. That's not our goal. Our whole goal is to bring people together.
Yeah, that's important because you cannot outsource. In my view, you cannot outsource the emotional connection that you have with your family, right? But you can provide that peace of mind. Then, if you like you said, if you have a question, it might be as simple as what day is today,
That's right.
for someone, and also if they can do it in that way so that they don't have to ask their grandson or son and daughter, um, that empowerment part that you were talking about earlier comes to play.
That's right. Yeah. All of us want to be independent. Seniors, I'm a dad, like you don't want to be a burden to your kids. So empowering the seniors, letting them live independently. 90% of seniors want to live their entire life in their own home. So we're all about giving them tools that allow them to live. We call it live grand, live your best life and be independent and feel good about it. And I just want to underline, I have the great pleasure of working with super seniors every day. Next week, I'm headed off to Normandy with 30 World War II veterans who are all
Oh,
100 years old or older. One of them is 104, and they're such wise, wonderful people. We can learn so much from them.
and I think that's the other part that just got me really interested in what you're doing is the the more we help our seniors to stay active and have a sharp mind, the more we all benefit from a societal perspective in their story, their wisdom, their experiences. And I think that is such a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. We frequently see, just by getting GrandPad in the senior's hand and really empowering them and reconnecting them in a fun and engaging way with their family, friends, and caregivers. In many cases where you see seniors, like, because of their aging and maybe they do have a lot of aches and pains, sometimes they kind of give up, right? They've lost that spark. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden they get that spark back and they're doing video calls with their grandchildren and sharing pictures. They get that pep in their step again, and they can live their final years really enjoying life. I think that's what we all want. We work with a great partner. Their slogan is, we're not growing older, we're growing bolder. And it should be, those, the second part of your life should be the
Yeah.
best.
I'm curious, as you're talking some of the experiences that you've had. I'm curious about the feedback that you got from family and users, and things that you kind of think back and make you proud of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, when my son and I started this company now almost 12 years ago, we were really kind of trying to solve that specific problem for my mom. We had no idea that something that just looks like a tablet could have such a emotional impact on people's lives, on the seniors and their families. And so I'll share two stories. One was, this was in February of 2020. So remember, February 2020 was just when
That
COVID
was the start.
started started happening. And I'd probably seen my first news article on CNN about this strange new thing, and it was at a senior care facility,
It was.
Kirkland, Washington, where kind of ground zero, where they were
Yeah.
all the camera trucks, and they say, sadly, all these seniors in this facility are suddenly dying. And it was that day where we got a outreach, a message from what we call the family administrator, 50-year-old daughter, who reached out to us and said, my dad is in that senior facility in Kirkland, Washington. He has dementia. I've gone there to visit him every morning and every night for the last 5 years. He's panicking that I can't be with him, but I just want to share with you, he's got a GrandPad, and I'm now doing video calls with him. And because of his dementia, he feels like I'm there. She said, thank you. And like, we were there at ground zero and we corresponded. She shared that. We actually have a feature called auto on or auto answer, because her dad, because of his dementia, it was challenging for him to even touch the screen to answer.
Yeah.
So with consent, it has auto answer. She just beam in and say, good morning, Dad, how are you? And that gave him, because he was obviously so, and of course, we all know what happened with the rest of COVID, and that we were, a huge part of helping families stay connected during that time. I'll give you another example. This one actually just happened this week. We had we work a lot with B2B enterprise healthcare partners. So one of their patients that has a GrandPad, and they use it to reach out to this person that has a lot of health challenges and a lot of mental health challenges. And through these daily outreach that they do with her on GrandPad, and her as the 85-year-old, knowing that someone cares about her and calls her every day to check in on her, she said, I was in a very dark place. I had given up. I was wanting to die, and now I feel good about life. I got my spark back. I can't wait for tomorrow. And so those kind of things, where just connecting people and meeting them where they are, as we age, it's hard to get out and about. It can be transformational. We're mentioned frequently in people's obituaries. People will say, Grandma Johnson,
Aw.
age 95, passed away. She loved doing video calls on her GrandPad with her grandkids. And so, we feel good that we're helping families stay connected.
That's amazing. Um, Obviously, I don't want anybody, not that I think anybody can, but I don't want you to give out your secret sauce. But if you had some advice to give tech companies around their like a general purpose devices to make it more inclusive for all their users, what are some of the things that just addressing one little design thing would make it easier?
Yeah, I'm happy to give out my secret sauce, and I always say our secret sauce is those grand advisors, right? You have to have deep empathy and understanding of the problem you're trying to solve. And that sounds very common sense, but you think about all the products that we all use. Like I think about my, supposedly smart TV. I've got a top of the line, wonderful TV. I'm frustrated by that thing every day, just turning it on and changing the channel. Like, really? I'm old enough to remember when TVs were simple. There was on-off switch. You turn the knob, and I was my dad's remote control, right? So, like, listening to your customers, having people that you really can connect with and see the problem firsthand, and then tackle the whole solution. It's not just about UI or UX, right? We like we designed the hardware, we designed
Yeah.
the docking station, we designed the box, we designed customer care. We answer the phone 24 by 7. We don't own one of those press one for this, three for this VRUs because those frustrate everybody and they actually don't save any money. So just design away the points of frustration. That's the secret sauce.
Do you think that AI is going to help with making technology more accessible, or is it going to be just another thing that is going to complicate everything?
Yeah. I think I'm in the camp that says AI is going to be the greatest innovation that I think we will ever see for sure in our lifetime, maybe in the history of mankind, because it's the first innovation where it can actually get better on its own, right?
Yeah.
Everything prior to this, required humans to improve
Mhm.
it. So it's improving at an amazing rate. The downside of that is it is also going to be used and is already being used in horrible ways by the bad
Yeah.
guy. And it's going to be able to scam people out of money and their identity faster and more sophisticated ways. So it's good, like any powerful technology, it's good and bad. I think there is a lot of good that can come from it. But, I think for us, what we're focused on is this audience of super seniors and bringing families together, and that's where we have a real area of expertise.
What is next for you and GrandPad?
Yeah. So the first, and we feel like we're really just in the first chapter of the company. So the first 10 years was about getting our foundational product, GrandPad tablet, out in the hands of lots of people in both a direct to consumer B2C way and in a B2B enterprise healthcare way. And we sell the tablet here in the US, Ireland, and UK. We're looking at other countries like Japan right now, which has the oldest population in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
17% of the people there are over the age of 75.
I can
Uh,
help you with Italy if you like.
yes, we think Italy would be fantastic. I'm going to France next week. So, there's a lot of seniors around the world that are need our help.
Yeah.
But the thing we just released at Christmas time this year is Grandy Games. So, Grandy Games is a free game that anyone can download on their iPhone or Android phone, or you can play it on your web browser. And it's all about the classic simple and safe games that bring families together and you can play together. And that's been a big hit. And we're really rolling that out. Again, our goal is to use games to bring people together. Um, After that, we've got a rich set of new things that I can't share just yet, but will be
Of
coming on
course.
26. So I'd be happy to come back and share them. But we're squarely focused on improving the lives of seniors by reconnecting them and bringing families together. And there's a lot of work left to do there.
Well, I'm grateful that you spent time with us today. I am going to have you back and tell us what is coming next. I'm grateful for the commitment that you made to really design inclusive, human centered technology and help so many people across the world. If people want to know more about you, I always say, our 30 minutes is over, but the connection with my guests is ongoing. Where can they find you and where they can find information for about GrandPad?
Yeah, come to our website, grandpad.net. And our 800 numbers on every page. You can call us and talk with their team. It's 800-704-9412. We answer the phone 24 hours a day, 365. We'd love to chat with you. We, of course, are on all the usual social media places. And like if people want to connect with me directly on LinkedIn, I love connecting and learning from others. I think another part of our secret sauce is feedback. always iteratively improving. And again, we feel like we're really just getting started.
I love that because I think once you have, you know what your purpose is and your goal is, listening for feedback and incorporating that is actually a plus, not a minus. And so, thank you for all the work that you do. I have to say, as you mentioned, that you always pick up the phone. Your support center is amazing. Like, I'm not one of those people that like talking to support people, but the dedication, the empathy, and just like the level of care that your people demonstrate, because I received call as to help me set up the device and all of that. I've not experienced that before. So, great job in training everybody to do that, because I think, especially if somebody's gifted the GrandPad and they want to try and do it by themselves, having that point of contact is critical.
Awesome. Thanks for saying that. I'll make sure I pass that along to the team. We work really hard on
Absolutely.
that, and I think they're wonderful.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me on.